it isn't your fault that you are the way you are, but you are the solution. And so when we understand all of the data that's happened to us in our past and we can reconnect all those memories, we then get to bring them forward into the present moment and say, right, I want to make sure I'm reclaiming this fun part of myself.
Welcome to Reclaim Your Voice, a podcast for women in business who are ready to lead with more clarity, more ownership, and more confidence in who they already are. I'm Savanna Madden, confidence coach, public speaker, and the founder of award-winning theatre school Madden Theatre Arts. This is not about becoming someone new, it's about returning to your voice and leading in a way that feels aligned. Here we explore confidence, leadership, visibility, business growth, and the real shifts that happen as you evolve. If you know you're capable of more, you're in the right place. This is Reclaim Your Voice. Hello and welcome to Reclaim Your Voice. I am so delighted to be joined by an amazing guest today who is a feminine embodiment mentor supporting the mental health and well-being of women and girls. Sherisse Bisram, welcome to the show.
Yay, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So great to see you because we actually met in real life just a few days ago, didn't we? So it's really lovely that we're getting to connect in this way too.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it was funny, wasn't it? Because you were like, are you aware that we're doing the podcast? I was like, yeah, I timed it that way. But obviously we didn't anticipate for Mercury retrograde and all the things. So it's been a journey, but that's what makes it even more, I think, better.
We've had a few technical hiccups this morning, but it's all right. We're still on schedule, aren't we? It's all good.
Yeah.
And so I love just to get right to it. Let's ask, for anyone who has never come across you or your work before, Sherisse, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to where you are right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And you may have to stop me because I'll go off on a tangent. You might pull me back in.
You are in a really inclusive space here. It's all good.
Yeah, lovely, thank you. Yeah, so I feel like if anyone does stumble on me, they'll probably see this like shiny, bright, sparkly, big personality and all of the things. But I feel like what makes me that version of myself is the fact that I've had to go through so much depth to get here. And I think I spent 14 years of my life being a professional dancer and a dance teacher, choreographer, and all of the things. But along that journey, I was using it really as an escapism from the trauma that I was actually, faced in my childhood and was masking my whole life. So, just a bit of a kind of nutshell of that. When I was between the ages of 12 to 17, I had 11 members of my family die back to back through various different reasons, one of which was my father, who was an alcoholic. So obviously growing up in that situation, plus adding the fact that I'm brown and I grew up in an area that wasn't culturally diverse, there were just so many layers of hardship. But when you're in that situation and at the time and you're young and you don't have the tools to really navigate your own emotions, you just I take it all on, really, to be honest. And I just took on the responsibility of my family. Because I was the eldest daughter, I sort of became the man of the house. And so that masculine energy really was the driving force of my professional dance career, because I was used to setbacks. I was used to hardship. I was used to being thrown at, all these difficult things. And I was like, no, I'm going to achieve what I set out to do. And especially when you lose a lot of people, you realize how short life really is. And I was like, no, I'm dedicated to becoming something or doing something with my life. And so, like I said, that masculine force, I was going through cycles of burnout. And like when I say burnout, I mean to the point where I could have drove my car into a wall and been happy that that was it, right? I was so in the depths of myself through these cycles of my life, but I couldn't let anyone know that I was suffering because we'd suffered so much as a family that it felt selfish of me to try and escape from this life. So I knew that I had to keep moving forward because so many people were turning to me for advice, for support. I was an incredible friend, a great daughter, a great sister, and this one that everyone relied upon my whole life. And I was performing my life, really, performing for my job, performing for my life. No one knew that I was crying myself to sleep at night, crying myself all the way to uni and back. And that was, an obstacle course in itself. There's been so many layers of my story. And my friends were always like, bloody hell, mate, you need to write a book. I am writing a book because it's just hilarious. But what I know to be true is that we attract what we are and what we think. And so for those years of my life, I'd say those, especially 28 years of like living that way, I was just manifesting more hardship because it was all I knew. So it kind of I guess I got to 23. I'd had a few difficult dance jobs. You know, you go out there, the captain's trying to sleep with you all. It's all of that sleazy stuff, which you hear about, unfortunately. I had a few of them around 23, and I came back home and I was like, you know what? This isn't serving me. I'm trying to do the jobs that I was told to do, you know, come out of dance college, go abroad and all the things. But I've always been like a street and hip hop commercial dancer. So I just reclaimed that. And that was really a start of a cycle of ease that started to happen in my life. And I started to journal a little bit, meditate a little bit, but all surface level stuff. And then I got some really incredible jobs in my career. Like I did the Marvel movie The Eternals, I did the Queen's Jubilee, got to travel loads, choreograph for Wireless and Reading Festival and all these amazing things. And again, I just realized that there was something empty in my heart. Like it just wasn't feeling fulfilling. And I always said that when it feels empty is when I have to think about what it is I want to do. So I was already on the edge of like something needs to shift now in my life. And the Marvel job was right at the edge of 2019, and that was the point where I crashed my car. Like, you know, all of these things, the universe saying, "Wake up! What are you doing?" And I was planning to move to America, and then 2020 rolls around, and guess what? We have to stop. That's it. Couldn't run anymore. So, yeah, that was really the big metaphorical wall that I ran into at 100 miles an hour, and everything that I'd built crumbled to the ground. And I was like, who the hell am I now, really and truly? So that was really the turning point where, and it was funny because I think I was dating someone at the time, and then they had this really vulnerable conversation with me about how like the pandemic stirred some things for them and all the things. But obviously at this time, I thought I was moving to America. I didn't care. I was like, yeah, whatever. But he was really vulnerable with me. And I remember saying to my aunt, who's a foster carer, ugh, it was really awkward and a bit icky. And she was like, well, Sherisse, you've spent your whole life having to be strong mentally, physically, and emotionally that you don't know what it's like to be vulnerable because you've never been there. And I was like, ah, crap. So then that word vulnerability became a little bit of like a hyperfixation for me. So then that really was the start of me looking into my own life to really see why I was the way I am, really, to be honest. And so as the months progressed in the lockdown, I came across my old university was doing a master's course. And I was like, well, I don't really know what I'm going to do with my life now. So maybe I'll go into that 10 years after doing my BA. I don't know what possessed me to do that because obviously it was so hard, but great because it was online. But I was really focused on female empowerment at the time. I mean, everything I've always done my whole life has been that. I was coming across these studies of girls in care and how dance had acted as an intervention to support their mental health and well-being. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. This is my bag completely. And then they were talking about the experiences they had that led them into care. And I was like, that's not something you'd go into care for. Or why would I in care for that? And then the ACEs kept coming up, all this evidence from ACEs. So I thought, right, I'm going to do this ACEs test. And I scored 8 out of 10. Now, that's not a score you want to get high for, but that was really the awakening point for me to say, oh, crap, childhood was difficult. But apart from that, you know, feeling the emotions, all the things, I think that gave me validation to say, oh, this is why I adopted this masculine energy. This is why it was so hard. And just went on a real deep journey of like real healing from the inside out. And the depths that I went to in that time, like all of my friendships crumbled. Obviously, work was not there. There was just so many points where I was like, just in this dark hole of like trying to figure out who I was. But in that darkness, I feel like that for me is where I found who I truly am. And, you know, I look back at the journals that I was writing at the time, and I just remember reading things like, I wish I could just feel really confident. I wish I was just fully accepted for who I am. And then a couple of years later, doing this work and all of the things, I remember reading back because the moons are correlate and astrological placements connect. So the eclipse portals, things like that, sometimes connect to 2 or 3 years ago. So I went back through a journal and I remember reading that thinking, I needed me now. And that was such a beautiful moment. And I think that's for me why working with women and girls is so important because I believe in the full cycle. Like for me, my work's about generational healing because if I knew what I know now when I was a teenager, my whole life would have looked different, you know? And we only know what we know at the time. So I feel like it's my way of paving this forward. So all of that deep healing work that I was doing to build myself back up, really in a strong foundation, that is the work that I lead women through now. So it's taking them out of survival mode and into embodied power. Because from the outside, everyone thought I was shiny, I was confident and all the things, but actually inside I was crumbling. So I feel like that really is the full reason why I do this work now. And I just really started to talk about it online. And then lo and behold, the snowball started to roll. And that was really what led me to this work now.
Oh, thank you, Sherisse. So many incredible shares there. I'm going to try and just pick up on one or two of them. I think that the fact that you were talking about getting to that place of feeling vulnerable and allowing yourself to be like that because you saw it through somebody else. And then that has now enabled you to share that whole story, which I'm sure you've shared multiple times on multiple platforms. That's what it's all about, because the more we share, the more people can see themselves in you if they can relate to any parts of your story, which I'm sure so many people can. I mean, I particularly relate to the performing arts side of things.
Mm.
And it's just so important, though, to be vulnerable and to share this stuff so that everybody feels a little bit less alone and that they're not navigating any of their trials and tribulations by themselves. Because I still think in, time of recording, we're in 2026, people still think that they have to do everything by themselves. And there are wonderful people like us in the world who are wanting to help and support and serve other people with finding their truer self. And what I really like about where we also, I feel we both resonate with one another, not just the performing arts element, is that our missions are to support women to reconnect with who they already are. They've just maybe lost themselves a little bit along the way because of experiences. I think most of the time it is down to various experiences that they've had or versions of themselves they think and limiting beliefs that they've got. But I would love to delve more into the work that you do, because I just find it really, really fascinating. I know a lot of stuff you do is about inner child work, and obviously you were talking about your own experiences as a child. Can you, if you feel comfortable, can you talk us through a little bit more about what inner child work looks like in practice and why it's so powerful?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I feel like these words feel like buzzwords, and they are so abstract. I think you've never heard of them before. But I believe that every single version of ourselves that we are now comes with a string of connected versions of ourselves, past and present. If you think about it like an infinity symbol, that we sit in the middle of that, and there's like so many past versions of us and so many future versions of us, and we sit in the middle. And so inner child work for me is really about going back into those experiences through our meditation and our mind, and through journaling, to really connect the dots. And that really is what my work is. It's just joining dots together. So when we say, for example, a lady comes to me and she's like, I've lost myself, I don't know who I am anymore, I used to feel really confident and now I feel like really empty. I'm like, okay, well, let's go backwards to see where this point actually started, because so much of who we are now and the voices that are in our heads, the ones that tell us we're not good enough or we should have done better and all these things, they aren't even our voices a lot of the time. Sometimes they come from caregivers that were mean to us, or we observed the way that they talk to themselves. For example, if you had a mum that was part of the skinny kind of era and wanted to be small and talked about her body all the time, that would give you and thing that you made feel like you need to be slim to be attractive. That's all these things that happen in our childhood experiences. And when we can go back to those memories through either journaling or through meditation, we're able to see that actually we're not the problem. And I think that really is the caveat of everything that I do, because it isn't your fault that you are the way you are, but you are the solution. And so when we understand all of the data that's happened to us in our past and we can reconnect all those memories, we then get to bring them forward into the present moment and say, right, I want to make sure I'm reclaiming this fun part of myself. I loved to do art when I was younger, so I'm going to bring that back into my life. I actually don't like talking to myself like that. That's not my voice. That was my narcissistic father's, so I'm going to give that away. And that really is the beauty of this work when it's, for me, it is spiritual, because I feel like there's this connection to mind, body and soul. And I think this is why my work is holistic, because I bring all the elements in, because then I add the movement side of things through somatic movement. Your body keeps a score, right? So the trapped emotions that are in your body through doing energy work, for me, even just on a call with someone, I can feel where that is in their body. I'm like, right, get up, we're going to move it out of our system. So it's just, yeah, a full way of bringing it in. So through movement, through energy work, through the meditation process, and then obviously the journaling, as we do when we're together on a call, for example, that really is like a whole holistic lens of, yeah, for me, healing. Because when we understand what happened to us, we can then accept it, release, and rebuild. And that's the process that I like to take all of my clients through.
I am such a massive fan of journaling. I found that out about you before today as well. So I was going to ask you about it in a little bit more detail, but you've kind of answered my questions. But I also use it with my clients. I find it is such a simple tool to have in the toolbox, but so effective, because obviously there are so many different ways you can do it. Some people like to just journal freely. Some people respond better with prompts. I don't know if you've got any other ways in which you do it. I mean, I know you said that you do it on sessions with your clients. So do you ask them questions and then they journal about it that you feel might be something that will enable them to connect those dots?
Yeah, so I feel like I'm probably jumping some things here, but I am so a good big part of my work is being a spiritual healer. So I can feel into people's emotions. I can also see into when someone explains their memory to me, I go straight into the memory with them. So it's clairvoyance. But it feels weird when I say it because I feel like I've just been on this journey of reclaiming that. But it is what I do with my one-to-one clients. So when we're talking about a timeline, for example, and we're in the memory, I can see the point in which maybe they're watching abuse happen and they're not in it themselves, but they're maybe watching a toxic relationship with their parents, for example. I'm like, okay, in that moment, how did you feel? What is the core emotions that are coming up for you now? Because a lot of people, like I did, can't identify their own feelings at the time because they were numb. You know, when we're younger, under the age of 7, our prefrontal cortex isn't developed. That's that conscious part of our brain. So it's all the emotional side of our things. So we think that it's our fault as a child why our parents are arguing, when actually it's nothing to do with us. So that part there is such a clear reclamation of, you know, taking our power back to ourselves and not giving it away to someone that isn't ours. So that's like a real powerful sort of tie together as to why the journaling is important, because I get to see through what it is they can't see and bring it forward into the present. And then also what I love to do is in a positive way. Obviously, I use the moon and like the energy that's happening around us, and then scripting the things we do want. So I think that is great to use journaling for healing and the clearing, but it's also great to the calling forward. You know, writing yourself a future letter, or yeah, just whatever it is that you're manifesting, like writing as if you've already received it. All of these things are beautiful tools that we can all have access to at any point.
I love the whole sort of projecting or like announcing what it is that you want in your future, and writing a letter to yourself is just such a great example of doing that. And what kind of like transformations and shifts do you see in the people that you work with?
Honestly, it's so incredible. And this is so woo woo. So if your audience
I'm
aren't,
so here for it. Like, I
good,
absolutely
good.
love it.
Okay. My first year of like solid clients back to back, I had two ladies that came to me that wanted. So I always do, as a pre-call with my clients, I always do a small visualization with them just so we can see what it is they want and what's achievable for them. So we step into their future self. Both of these ladies said about either having a baby or having another baby at some point. For me, again, I like to look at things visually. So we think about joining the dots is one thing, but untangling the blocks within us is another thing. That's all, again, part of my work. So when I have a clear idea of what it is they want to call forward. What I'm doing is going back through their timeline with them and their inner child work and all of the patterns, the subconscious patterns, limiting beliefs. These are all the tangled knots, and we just clear them out of the way. And so within the sort of, I'd say 6 to 8 months of these women working with me, both of them have had their babies now. And that was something that they either physically couldn't have because they've tried and it wasn't working, or they didn't feel safe enough again in their bodies to receive it. And so all of the work that we were doing was, again, the mental side of clearing things. But then the spiritual side of clearing things is what's wild. And this is, again, super woo. I did the exact same visualization with both of them. And then within like 3 weeks, they both messaged me to say, oh my gosh, you never guess what? I'm literally pregnant. Okay, maybe it wasn't 3 weeks, maybe it was like 5 to 6 weeks. But again, like that realization. And then now we're on the other side of it for both of them. They've had their babies, and yeah, just a really beautiful experience. But I mean, that's a physical side of it. But, you know, the other clients I've worked with that wasn't looking for a baby, they have just completely 360'd in just how they feel about themselves. And the beautiful thing for my work is it's not that you wake up and you're confident, the end. It's that you have the tools to be able to conflict navigate. And that for me is such a really powerful thing, because so many women I meet are afraid of having an argument or saying how they feel. Again, our voice is taken away from us. All of that sisterhood wound, the matriarchal line, all of those things are connected. And so when a woman messages me to say, you know, that person at work that was giving me the jip on all the mouth, giving it and all the stuff and made me feel really intimidated, I said this to them today and I felt really empowered when I walked away. I'm like, yes, that is it. Because I think so many strong women as well, and high achieving women, they feel like we said before, they have to perform or they have to have this front on, but actually inside they are crumbling. And so my work is about creating that strong inner foundation so that no matter when the storm comes, which it will, we're all living in the 21st century, we experience it, and the world outside us, around us right now, is really scary, I think, for a lot of people. But when your inner foundation is strong and steady, it doesn't matter what comes your way, because you have the tools and the self-trust to know that you'll get through it.
Absolutely. And I think that's where a lot of our philosophies, theories, practices like really connect beautifully, because I'm also about the same sort of thing in terms of we don't need to put on any masks. And I know that obviously masking is an enormous thing that a lot of people experience, but none of this kind of fake it till you make it. I mean, I don't know how many times you were told that whilst you were training, working as a dancer in the performing arts. It's just a phrase that is bandied about quite a lot. And I just think, no, we don't need to fake it till we make it, because there is something inside all of us that we can grow from. And, you know, you were saying, you know, you don't just wake up confident, you know, do all the work, like, cured, I'm
That's
confident now, like, whoa,
like
fantastic. Exactly. But it's all about growing that. And as you say, having the tools in the toolbox to weather that storm when it inevitably comes, because we're all going to go through trials and tribulations, and be able to still show up when we need to. I was talking on Friday all about stepping out of your comfort zone, more so in business rather than in life. But I feel like your analogy or your example of one of your clients, you know, feeling really empowered by having a conversation which was around conflict with, you know, a co-worker. Obviously that is in the workplace, but it might feel a bit more like a life thing. But I was talking about showing up in your business, you know, if you're a business owner, should we say, and how it can be quite difficult to sort of like practice being out of your comfort zone, in that sort of stretch zone, because you just have to be in it and you just have to go for it and do it. But having tools to be able to push yourself and have the courage to step out of your comfort zone into that moment is about that growth and that groundwork that we do, you know, in preparation for when the time does come. And obviously we're never going to be 100% prepared for those sort of things. You know, I was talking to you before recording about something stretchy that I'm doing in the next couple of days that's kind of just come really out of the blue, but it excites me more than it scares me. But it's still going to be a step out of my comfort zone. And I feel like I've been doing it for the last 3 months. Right? Yeah. Like, quick, another step out.
That what you said there is so important. And I always talk about nothing grows in your comfort zone.
No.
Like the old soil and it's all weeds and everything in there. So you have to like repot yourself in a new environment to be able to really flourish. And you won't know unless you're tested, right? And I think that this is something that people who are searching for confidence or empowerment and all these things, they're thinking that they're just going to wake up and feel like it. It's like, no, it should feel like a death and rebirth moment, because it is every cycle, right?
Every time.
And I think if you're not tested, you're not growing. And that's why they say that like failure, the person that's failed the most is the most successful, because they kept going every single time. And I think clear point there for sure.
Yeah. And I definitely think performing arts training gives you a certain type of resilience. So we've already had quite a good head start. However, there are still lots of other ways to test your resilience levels, and all about moving forwards. There was an analogy about resilience that I was looking at the other day, about how, as similar to, like, women after they've given birth, how they want their bodies to bounce back. And similar analogy with resilience, you want to bounce back from something, some sort of failure, for example, or negative experience. But actually, no, it's not about bouncing back. It's about moving forwards, because once you've had that experience, whether that is giving birth or, a resilience challenge, you're never the same person again. You've evolved. And that's my other thing about, sort of evolving through your identity. I started my first business 19, which has grown and scaled to an award-winning theatre school now, which has then now freed me up to do more of this work, because I've got a team coaching and doing all the operations in the background. But I am not the same person I was when I started off with my 12 students in a porter cabin in a car park with that theatre school to now. And it's not that I'm a different person, it's just my identity has evolved. So I've kind of contradicted myself there, because I said I'm not the same person as I was then. But you know what I mean? You just grow, don't you? And you grow forwards. We don't ever revert back to who we were beforehand.
And I suppose what you're saying as well is that you were at first like a little seed, and you budded and you bloomed, and then you just planted more seeds. So now you're a garden, right? And that's the exchange on that. I'm such a, like I said, analogies. I have analogies for everything.
I love it. I'm such a visual person though. So being able to visualize that really helps me understand what point you're trying to create. So it's amazing, isn't it? When you think of it like that. And then the way I've just seen that as well, and how I've interpreted it further, is that then I've given opportunities to other coaches to work with me, delivering amazing stuff to young people through my framework within my theatre school. And then now I'm also planting other seeds with other business owners who I'm supporting through confidence coaching, essentially. So yeah, it's lovely.
The ripples, all the ripples were there. I think this is the beautiful thing about this work, right? Is that whatever it is you're doing and you put your hand to, especially you with your, theatre school, that's like you said, the coaches, the teachers, the students, and then the clients that you meet in this space as well. It's just these constant ripples are going out of transformation. And that for me is the legacy work, is that part. It's not really about us, like our personal impact. It's more about how the people that we touch are affected and go on to do better and beautiful things. That's why I love working with young people. I always have. And I never realized that it was a strength of mine until I think in a couple of years ago when I first started speaking, I did a talk at a boys' school, and it was empowering men to empower women. And it was only the teacher that came up to me at the end and said, I've never seen 300 boys sit still and listen to a woman like that before. And I was like, well, clearly I'm doing something right. But I think it's just, when you're passionate about something, you connect with people. That's a gift, isn't it? And I feel like because I'm always delivering and operating from my heart at all costs, or I'm not doing it. There's no other opportunity for me here. I'm not doing something for a selfish gain, or selfish is the wrong word, but
for a vanity metric, or
It's got to align with who I am and my morals. Otherwise, I'm not in.
100%. And it was interesting because before prepping for this episode, I was like, I really want to talk to Sherisse about her experience with working with young people, because obviously that has been a huge part of what I do and still is. But I do tend to work with more adults these days other than young people. So that's incredible to hear that story, because it's an utter privilege to be able to speak to young men and young boys. And I have a son myself, and I feel like it's an utter privilege to know that I'm raising a boy in this time that we're living in, and I know what kind of person I want him to be. And I say that in terms of like, he can be whoever he wants to be, but I know that it's mine and my partner's responsibility to teach him how to be a fantastic person in this world and how to treat other people that he comes into contact with, and, you know, to put his best foot forward as much as he can. I mean, he's 2, so I've still got a long way to go, but it just feels really important with young people, and with women and girls. I feel like people like you and I, when you were saying about legacy, we're paving the way for everybody that's coming after us. And the more that we, reclaim our voices and our bodies and speak up and, go after our dreams and pursue the things that we want to do with this passion and energy and wanting to spread our, impact and value, the more it will feel really doable for everyone that comes after us,
Definitely, 100% that. And I think, yeah, it's so beautiful when you have your own child to be able to see that as well. Like, I don't have my own kids yet, but I've got nieces. And so that for me is such a, yeah, important thing. And one thing that me and my sister noticed is that when she sort of repeated the same pattern that my mum had done, and like she was in a really hard situation, and then her turning point was when she knew she had 2 girls and she didn't want to repeat the same experiences that we went through. So then she left and changed her dynamic with a lot of hardship. But that again is those moments where we get to take accountability and say, it's not our fault that that happened, but we get to be the solution. And I think that's great what you're saying with your son is like the intention behind raising like a really healthy, beautiful man that's going to be loving in the world is what we need more of. And I think for a lot of the girls that I work with, they are girls that have had hard experiences or challenging upbringings or just faced maybe bullying or whatever it is. But for me, the most beautiful thing, and I actually had a teacher come into one of my sessions before. So I delivered this 6-week program that I take into schools, and I also have workshops and things like that I do. But my favorite thing is obviously doing the 6 weeks with them to see their real transformation. And the student helper came in. She's an older lady and she was doing psychology. So she said, "Oh, can I come and sit in these sessions just to support you, but also for myself?" And I said, "Yeah." And at the beginning, the girls are so closed off. They're like, "Oh, what's this visualization stuff? And what's this blah, blah, blah," chatting. And then as the weeks went on, they were looking forward to the sessions. And then as the weeks went on, by the end of it, these girls that are really like quite inside of themselves were asking really deep questions like, about their childhood, about relationships, about whatever it was they wanted, because I give them that free open space and I get them to write it down anonymously. So then that way I answer the question to the class and they feel really seen. And the teacher was like gobsmacked. She went, "I don't know how you've managed to open them up." She went, "I've learnt more from you in these 6 weeks than I have my psychology degree." And I was like, well, I'm really glad. And I feel like it's because everything that I teach is from my own lived experience. So I'm always saying like, this is like, maybe, for example, we're talking about self-awareness and what that looks like. And then talking about my story of how it was hard and then it became easy. It's always sharing that vulnerable, open space to create safety, because, we hear all the time, "Oh, it's a safe space." But is it a safe space? Because unless you meet someone with vulnerability, like I said at the beginning, I'm coming straight in with my cards on the table. So they know from the get go that I'm like the real deal. And I think with young people, as you know, they suss out inauthenticity like that. If you came all guns blazing, like do what I say, they would literally switch off straight away. Whereas I mean, to be honest as well, I do look young for my age, and sometimes they think I'm about 5 years older than them. I'm like, I'm 3 times your age, but it's a really beautiful experience. And I love young people. I love the banter. I love all of it. And I love the fact that they feel safe enough at the end to come and ask me questions. And a few times when I've shared stories about my parents and what the dynamic was and things like that, that these young girls have come up to me at the end and said, I'm going through that myself and it's really hard. And I bumped into actually one of those young girls not too long ago because my auntie, who fosters, her foster son was in a dance show, so he loves my support, so I go. And one of the other students was there, and she came up to me at the end. She went, "Oh my God, Miss, it's so lovely to see you here. Like, thank you for coming to support me." And I was like, yeah. And like just remembering that what that small session of 6 weeks made a difference to her. So yeah, that's just such beautiful work that I get to do.
It is beautiful work. I couldn't say it better myself. And don't you find that you learn so much from them as well? And I don't mean, all the new lingo that we feel very old if like we were ever to repeat it, but like just their visions of the world, the way they see things, their interpretation, their opinions. Like, oh my goodness, I have learned so much working with young people that I obviously never have learned elsewhere. So you'll hit the nail on the head when they can see right through people. But I feel like that's where anything that's not really to do with academia, and you're coming into a school, or you're, a lot of our sessions in my theatre school were done after school and at the weekends. We do have in-school provision in a couple of locations. However, you're able to build that really strong rapport with them, because they're also starting to look at something that they're really interested in as well, and just meeting them where they are at. And that's what I've always taken into working with adults as well, because there is actually not really a huge difference. And I think when you come to meet somebody exactly where they're at, and as you said, lay all your cards on the table, then can become a safe space. But yes, that word is used a lot, isn't it? Lots of people say, oh, this is a safe space, and perhaps not everybody does feel quite safe just yet, because they may have only just entered.
I think if you can go in somewhere with your wall down straight away, people instantly warm to you. And I think that that's something I've learned over my experience, because I think whenever I've been teaching, and I used to also do the after school clubs and all of those things as well. So I absolutely agree with you. But I don't think I've ever had a wall when it came to teaching young people. I've never walked into a place thinking that I'm the one who has it all together and you should listen to me. And I always say that as well at the beginning. I'm like, this is a nurturing environment. Like, I want you to be able to challenge me. I want you to be able to say, no, I don't agree with you. Even with movement, I want you to make your own spin on it, So yeah, I think that that's really important. I think, being completely open and, like you said, meeting them where they're at. That's always been my thing. And I think that's what people feel in me, is that I'm not, that obviously we all have an ego, but I don't lead with mine, and especially not anymore, So I think that that's important, that we are making a point of that. And again, when we're performing confidence, we're performing that we have it all together, we are leading with our ego. And that's why sometimes there's resistance, like if you're selling an offer, for example, in business, and you're performing that you have all of this stuff together, people aren't connecting, they're not noise in this space. That I'm sure you're teaching exactly the same thing that I am, is that the thing that they're buying is you, we're
going to cut through with the authenticity.
That's it. Just truth, that's all it is really, isn't it? We can use all the words, but it's just being true.
Oh, Sherisse, I feel like we could chat all day about this. I'm so pleased that we were able to cover so much about working with young people as well. It's a really nice way to connect our sort of thoughts about things as well. Really, really lovely. So we're going to sort of start wrapping things up. But where can we find you if we want to connect further with you? Do you have anything to gift us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am predominantly on Instagram. If you want the unfiltered raw stuff, I'm starting to build up my TikTok. I've been a bit inconsistent, not going to lie, but that's where you get like the nitty gritty stuff. Also lots of woo woo stuff over there. So if you fancy a bit of woo, come over to TikTok. If not, Instagram's my jam. And then, yes, so everything that I talk about is about, like I said, this real deep embodied sense of trust, so that we can be our most confident self. And so the phrase main character was a thing, wasn't it? Like last year, everyone was like, you've got to be the main character of our own life. But I was saying it before it became cool, guys. Okay, just saying. I did coin that before. So I have this series of main character energy activations, and it's like a movement piece. You get to get in your body, do some somatics, but also some feel good vibes. And also you have a morning and evening meditation. So my clients that have listened to it, they love it, and they listen to it every morning. And it's so funny when people tell me that they listen to because I've got lots of visualizations and meditations, and it's like, I'm like, so you're just used to my crazy way of talking all of the time, but it works. So, if you want to activate that main character within you, come over to that freebie, and that's there for you already. And then, if you just feel like you relate to my story and you've had a similar experience, I'm always here to connect. So drop me a message.
Thank you so much. And I'll link all of that up in the show notes. But thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and energy. I can feel it through the screen, Sherisse. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. And you're going to come over to my podcast too. So we will definitely make that happen.
Can't wait. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Reclaim Your Voice. If today's conversation resonated, then head to the show notes where you'll find my free audio gift. And if this episode helped you in any way, it would mean so much if you shared it, rated or reviewed the show. That support helps these conversations reach the people who really need them. You can also watch the full episode on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you soon.